I don't care what anybody says, this is my 2024 Olympic Games. Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and next time on Death Battle, we have Bowser, the king of the Koopas from Super Mario, versus Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog. And if you guys have watched my channel for basically any length of time, you'll probably know that this is one of my most wanted Death Battle episodes ever. I absolutely adore these characters. I adore them as villains and the series they come from. I'm so happy that this works as well as it does as an army fight, because I find it super interesting, super debatable, so many different moving parts. I just really like those kinds of fights. And yes, you know, we've known about this episode's production for a little bit of time because it was revealed literally at the beginning of the Kickstarter campaign, so I might not be at the height of my excitement than say if I just found out like a few hours ago or anything, but even still, rest assured, I am very excited that this episode is coming, and I'm sure my hype will just climb back up as we get closer and closer to the time. I just can't wait for it. Now, before we really dive into this, it's important to get as good a grasp as possible on what the conditions of the fight are and what's going to be included. And thankfully, we have some kind of confirmation of this thanks to one of the researchers, and it seems pretty straightforward for the most part. Basically, both Bowser and Eggman will be given anyone that has been a part of one of their standard armies and is consistently on their side. Also, of course, any major armadas or artillery they have. Basically, anything that is theirs and makes sense for them to have some kind of access to. No Mario-kun or Archie Sonic material will be looked at, but basically all closely tied material will be, such as the IDW Sonic comics or Paper Mario. And what interested me the most is that not only is Eggman getting access to anything and everything that he has personally invented, no matter when it was used or whatnot, but both combatants can use, apparently, any weapons or items or such that were one-time uses or could be considered non-standard. So it seems like they're really pulling a Batman versus Iron Man here and just compiling all of their resources together. And while that might be bending normal Death Battle rules just a little bit, I can honestly get behind this concept because it is very thorough and it makes things more interesting. But because there is so much content that could be covered, I'm gonna mainly focus on the stuff that's really question-provoking, or the stuff that could change the flow of the fight, and it's just a matter of would they or how much would they. That's honestly part of the reason why I love this matchup so much, because there's just so much of that. We all know the obvious stuff. Eggman is a much more experienced strategist, but Bowser is much stronger and much tougher than Eggman personally, and I would probably say more so than most, if not all, of the mechs that he pilots as well. Basically, a one-on-one confrontation with Bowser is not what Eggman wants under any circumstances. However, whether or not you want to argue that Eggman himself is faster than Bowser or any of his allies, since Eggman's own personal speed is a whole other can of worms for obvious reasons, he definitely has beings on his side capable of keeping up with Sonic. So the overall speed average of his side of the debate is incredibly high no matter what you think about Eggman. Also, while neither army has the most experience working together as a team like this, I would argue that Eggman's might be a bit better just comparing experiences side by side, and of course Eggman especially knows how to come up with various plans and traps on the fly, and he knows how to use all of his moving parts at his disposal very well. There is also the question, what exactly are the conditions for ending an army fight like this? Because while I recognize that some players on both sides might not stop fighting just because their leader died, I find it hard to believe that Bowser can win the episode if he also died in the process, and the same goes for Eggman. Even if you want to argue that every being on one side needs to die for the other side to win, I think Death Battle is going to go with the most likely scenario where the leader of the winning side survives as well. And I think it goes without saying that Bowser himself is way harder to remove from the equation than Eggman himself. Yes, Eggman knows how to keep his distance, and he has some crazy fast bodyguards, but normally he's not going to be able to survive for too long if most anything on Bowser's side gets in range of him. And thanks to stuff like the invisibility and intangibility of the boos, as well as some space-time warping abilities, that feels like a real possibility. Not to mention that Kamek could heal, strengthen, or probably even bring Bowser back to life as Dry Bowser, even if he is killed, which would at least extend his involvement in the fight and just make things even harder for Eggman's side. But I'll admit, this is just one piece of the puzzle. We still need to analyze their arsenals as best we can to determine what kind of outcomes are even feasible. Going over the most prominent players on each side, Bowser of course has Goombas, Koopas, King Boo and the normal Boos, King Bob-omb and the normal Bob-ombs, Kamek and the Magic Koopas, Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings, Petey Piranha, and of course many different living items and weapons such as Thwomps, Chain Chomps, and Bullet Bills. Eggman has the Badniks, the Master Robots, Metal Sonic, and by extension Metal Overlord, other mecha copies of some of the heroes, various E100 robots, Chaos, Infinite, Scratch and Grounder, obviously, and Sage, Eggman's AI that can take control over pretty much any technology, and even pilot the huge Titan mechs. Both sides obviously have more players, and Bowser and Eggman can make copies of pretty much anyone they want on each of their sides, but looking at everything that I've been able to find, it seems to me that both sides' strongest beings match up pretty well in terms of stats, with maybe Eggman's side being a bit better in terms of speed, but Bowser's side seems to have way more variety in terms of hacks and overall attack options. Surprisingly, a decent amount of the members on Bowser's team can either approach his own base stats, like King Boo and Bowser Jr., and use his standard power-ups for that matter, or they just have some ridiculous special abilities like Kamek, who can increase the power and size of pretty much anyone he wants to, and has some insane battlefield control by stealing or swapping whatever items are there. And then you also have the regular Boos, who can become invisible and tangible, and can possess living and metal beings, as well as other minions with tons of other versatility and reality warping powers. Eggman's heaviest hitters could definitely equate to similar levels of power with the proper scaling, especially Metal Overlord, Titans, etc., but they're not going to be able to stack up in terms of sheer quality and quantity of hacks or abilities. And again, more of Bowser's people just seem to be at that higher power level, with both of them being able to make duplicates of whoever they want. That does muddy that up a little bit, but I'm still willing to bet on Bowser having more at any given time. So yes, while both sides have very strong players that could wash the majority of the other side easily, I would give the overall army advantage to Bowser. And aside from armies, the biggest stuff left to go over is Bowser's own abilities and items, and Eggman's personal technology and items. You know, again, considering that they're including basically everything, as mentioned before. And I will admit, this is where I think the arguments for Eggman are at their strongest, because that's really where his versatility comes from, more so than his army. While I obviously can't go over everything, we know he has a ton of different ships and vehicles and mechs with various firepower and defensive options, which he can usually switch between very quickly and easily, making him rather slippery. He has some weapons capable of combating or even hurting supersonic, like the true Area 53 mech or the Egg Salamander, not to mention having control over the Time Eater. He's got a mind control ray, the Metal Virus, which turns all organic material into mindless robotic zombies. He's got the Phantom Ruby, which alters reality and minds and allows him to turn into Light Man, basically Super Eggman. And he also has the Egg Wizard, which is powered by the stars, something that's responsible for allowing parallel universes to exist. Some of this is also on par or able to surpass the power of the Chaos Emeralds, which I wouldn't be too surprised if Eggman got access to as well for this fight. Bowser's abilities consist of transmutation, teleportation, some elemental control. He's got space-time, gravity, and reality manipulation. He has various different vehicles and ships. He's got some power-ups that allow for invincibility, stat boosts, duplication, healing, so many different offensive and defensive traits, and even more than that. But the biggest things on Bowser's side would have to be the Star Rod, which basically allows Bowser to do whatever he wants, similar to the Phantom Ruby, but he also has various different transformations, including Fury Bowser and Dreamy Bowser, the latter of which, again, can basically just allow him to do anything in his imagination, since it's powered by the Dream Stone. And this is where things get even more complicated, because because realistically, things like the Dreamstone and the Phantom Ruby should be capable of dealing with like everything on the other side, including providing counters, but they're also counters to each other. And you can see this in some other ways too, like both of them having battlefield removal, but also dimensional travel, or both of them having some kind of control over time. However, when trying to look at the tinier details here, because at this point I feel like that's all I can do, I still kinda wanna side with Bowser. Yes, Eggman's technology provides him with a lot of firepower, but when just looking at their win cons side by side, I think Bowser has it just a little better. The main things that I can't stop thinking about are the fact that the Boos, Kamek, etc. can silently reach Eggman or straight up steal his strongest items, and the fact that Bowser needs to actually be overpowered and die in order to lose. That's where I see this matchup breaking the most. Very little, if anything, is actually going to deal fatal damage to Bowser, and the more is stolen from Eggman, the easier it will be to keep up that momentum and eventually overpower and reach him, which is really, really bad for him. And even aside from that, Bowser's reality warping tools, abilities, minions, etc. are more numerous, and he has more direct counters to the limited hacksier stuff that Eggman does have, such as anti-mind control medication, or just being able to remove and replace his metal virus infected army. Yes, that largely removes stuff like the Phantom Ruby and the Dreamstone, the Star Rod from the equation, but I have to come to some kind of conclusion, right? I will say, the main thing that worries me about coming to this conclusion is that I could see Death Battle equating a lot of stuff to each other and then saying that it really comes down to speed and strategy to determine who wins. And if they do that, then yeah, Eggman wins. I'm not going to deny that. Like, they're definitely going to side with Eggman in that case. But in my opinion, physically and practically speaking, I do believe that Bowser has more ways to undo or survive what Eggman has than the other way around, and the sooner that one side gets a leg up over the other side, the easier it becomes for them. So ultimately, there are way too many variables for me to say anything super confidently, but I'm still so happy that this matchup is debatable, and that it's debatable because of how much shit the characters have. I'm really excited to see Death Battle's take on it. I'm sure they're gonna bring up a bunch of stuff that I don't expect, but hey, that's part of the fun. But just using the information that's available to me, I do believe that with the power, survivability, and wild abilities of not just Bowser, but also his army, he has more direct counters and more ways to overwhelm Eggman's side and stay in the lead. Eggman has ways he could win. Hell, he has ways that he could easily win, but overall it just feels like a more uphill battle for him, even with his strategies. I think this is one of those battles where it's really easy to think that the character that you want to see win will win, because it's easy to just roll with the win cons that they have. But as I've said over and over and over again on this channel, having win cons is not enough to win. Your win cons need to be more likely to occur or to succeed than your opponents. And right now, I just personally believe that Bowser's win cons are more reliable and will lead him to winning a higher percentage of possible scenarios. Maybe just a bit higher, but higher. But anyway, guys, I have talked for long enough. I am super tired. Please let me know what you think about this battle and who you think will win in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe too if you want to see more stuff like this. But either way, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I absolutely love this debate, despite the craziness. It's part of why I love it, to be honest. So, you know, I'm really excited to see what Death Battle cooks with this one. I think it could be one of the best Death Battles we've ever gotten, but we'll just have to wait and see. That's it for me. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.